So we have a decent amount of functionality added to this game, and I want to kind of walk you through how this game engine is kind of designed. We're trying to roll our own game engine just for fun. I would probably not recommend doing this. I would just say grab Unity or grab Unreal or use something that already has like a nice architecture in place, and you basically just add your stuff into it. But I figured, hey, let's just kind of talk about what we built here, and maybe you guys can learn something from it. The first thing I would recommend doing, and I think the first learning point from this video, is often as the code base gets a little bit larger, drawing out these diagrams can just make understanding how stuff works a little bit easier. Because if you look at the project, I mean, this is like a small scale project. If you look at it, we have three different packages here. We have the Next.js application that kind of houses the client. And then we have the game client, which is basically, it initializes and it spins up the canvas, and then it starts, connecting to the WebSocket server, and then it displays the stuff that comes in. And then we have the game server. This is just a Node.js application that runs, listens for connections, and basically allows you to move around. A higher level diagram like this, I mean, you can call this like a UML. This is like my own Frankenstein type of diagram, just so I can understand the code a little bit better. But diving through this, trying to understand how this works, you'll see that we have a game server class, and it has an update method. Most online games have a server. Like if you go and read about Counter-Strike Source or Counter-Strike, you have like a tick rate. Okay, so every 33 milliseconds, if you do like 30 tick rate or 60 tick rate, the server tries to run as fast as possible, and then it updates all the things inside of the game using the elapsed time. All right, and that happens in the update. So what happens here? I'm going to go ahead and just go to the game server. So I'm going to go to server, and then you'll see there's a class called game server. Okay, and this thing has an update method. So if you go find this update method down here, all this is doing is a bunch of higher level functionality to basically update all the entities, and then it broadcasts the new game state. All right, there's more stuff that, it's kind of important to know about, but it's not important enough to go in a diagram like this. So the game server is going to call update every game tick. That is going to loop through an entity manager. So we have this thing called an entity manager, which basically encapsulates all the entities and has a lot of helper functions on it so that we can grab entities by, type and stuff like that. I think I actually opened the wrong thing. Let's see. Server, we'll do entity manager. Here it is. All right, so here are the helper functions. So this thing has like an internal private array that just keeps track of all the entities, and you want to encapsulate this because you can later on refactor the entities to be like a lookup table or a map to make it more efficient to find entities by a certain type. Right now it's just an array, and so all these methods that we use are public methods that can act on that array. Okay, so again, this thing gets called every update. So let's go and look for the update method in this. By the way, a quick way to search for methods is do a Command P and do the @ symbol and say update, and that'll take you directly to the function call in your file. If you want to do a full project search, do a hashtag, and you can actually search through every place that has an update. Those are probably the most important hotkeys for searching large code bases. You could also do a full project grep if you want to, but anyway, you see here Entity Manager, it loops through all the entities, finds the ones that can be updated. Some of them don't get updated. For example, these trees, they're static, they don't update. But other entities like the zombie or the player or these twigs on the ground, they have an update method. So we basically call those, and we are also doing some refactoring right now to change the way the system works to a ECS, so entity component system, I believe it's called, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then finally we refresh the spatial grid so we can do fast lookups to find entities that we need. So the idea is that we loop over all these entities, and the logic for how the game entities work, it's all basically encapsulated behind different entity classes. So if we just look at one simple one that I recently added, we have a spikes entity. Okay. And this spikes entity, let me just say this real quick. This is going to extend the entity class, and the entity class extends a generic entity, and the generic entity has something called extensions. Again, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Like, we are trying to figure out what's a good solution for this game. And there's people probably who can leave comments and give us good critique and feedback of how to actually architect this better. But one of my friends on the Discord kind of did some refactoring to try to get one of these entities to use an ECS approach. And what an ECS approach is you basically have these individual pieces of functionality that you attach on to the entity. So for example, I have this spikes trap, which if I go back to the game and kind of show you, there's spikes right here. And if the zombie walks over the spikes, it hits the zombie, and then the spike has about a 5-second cooldown period before it can attack again. And so this game is going to be a base building game where we can kind of put down spikes, we can put down walls, etc. And by composing your entities by using these extensions, you can quickly, pick and choose different types of functionality and just put it directly on this extensions array, and it's going to adopt that functionality out of the box. All right, so for example, positionable. This is an extension that just keeps track of an X, Y, and a size. So you can kind of position these entities on the game. Some entities may not have a position. They might be like a global entity that just needs to run or update every so often. But if you need something that needs to show up on the map, you're going to want to give it a positionable extension. Now, the way this kind of works is these extensions, when they're sent over from the back end to the front end, we serialize them from the server. So we basically say, hey, don't worry about sending over all these helper methods. You just need to send over the raw data, which happens to have a name, X, Y, and a size. And the front end is going to get that event from the server, and it's going to deserialize the data that came in and try to figure out how to basically reinitialize this entity based on the deserialized data. Okay, so it's just a basic like deserialized, serialized thing. And we apply that to all these extensions, and we also apply it to the entity itself because the entity can have fields on it. And so this could have a serialized method if you want, and you can actually like extend what's being serialized from the base class and just kind of add in your own stuff if you want to. So that's how positionable, that's how positionable works. We have triggerable. So this is a extension where if a enemy or something walks over the spikes, we can actually have like a hitbox to know, okay, this is the region which is going to trigger that that attack or that thing. Okay, so for example, I don't know if you play like Warcraft 3 or StarCraft 1 and done like the map editors. Typically you have areas that you can create as triggers, and you need a width and a height and an X and a Y for that to actually know when a user walked into it. And then we also have something called a trigger cooldown attacker. This is where the logic goes into like, okay, when a enemy walks over the spikes, we need to damage the enemy. So if you look at this, we say, okay, the victim type is only going to be zombie. Here's some damage you're going to do is 1, and you have a 1-second cooldown. So if you look at this, again, this has an update method. So when this gets initialized in the entity manager, we basically are going to call the update method on this. Okay, so this calls update here. This loops over the entity, calls update on all the extensions. And then we can kind of get reference to the entity manager to do more things, right? So all these extensions and entities can reach out and kind of understand the entire server, the entire game state if they want to, and do stuff with it. So what this one does is it has like an attack timer. And if we are ready to attack, we get the entities that are nearby this trigger or this spike entity. And then we just loop over all the nearby entities and say, hey, if the thing we're looking at, if it overlaps, actually in this case, I think we're just doing a simple little distance calculation. So like if the zombie were to walk over the center of the spikes, then we can go ahead and fire off something. So in this case, we're basically saying, hey, damage the entity, reset the cooldown, and that's about it. Now, also we have an isReady boolean. This is for making the spikes turn translucent or transparent when the zombie gets attacked. So if you notice this, the spikes are going to kind of become transparent. And then that's kind of to denote that, hey, these spikes have fired and now they need to recharge. Now, again, because we have this isReady boolean that's basically going to be serialized over the front end, you can use this when it changes on the back end automatically. So like on the front end, we basically say, hey, when you're running out these spikes, find the isReady. So we basically say, hey, take the entity, get the extension called trigger cooldown attacker. That should have an isReady property on it. That's automatically going to get synced to the server state every server event that comes in. And then we basically draw 2 different images based on if that boolean is true or not. Okay. So that's kind of how the extensions work and how they are kind of used on the entities to add functionality and just kind of allow us to reuse code instead of having to create a bunch of entities and copy pasting stuff or call utility functions Instead, you just add these extensions or components, I guess is what they're called in an ECS system. So let's talk about how this stuff gets synchronized over to the front end. We have this server.broadcast game state. So if I just do that command P, broadcast game state, here it is. We can go to that file. This is basically doing something very, very bad. It's looping over all the entities every tick, and it just sends over the complete state to the front end. We plan to add delta compression. What that is we only care to send over the changes to the entity. We don't need to send over the entire entity every single tick, because that's a lot of extra bandwidth that we don't care about, right? So we do need to come in here. I have like a to-do here to clean that up, add delta compression, but that's going to require refactoring other places in the code base. And as far as prototyping out a game, I just don't think it's very important at this point. I know I can add it in. I know it won't be too hard to do. What's more important to me is prototyping this game out, adding more functionality, making it fun, and then coming back and make it performant when you find a good prototype. Okay, so how this synchronizes, like remember we talked about the extensions, they automatically synchronize to the front end. How does that work? Well, we broadcast the entities, and then the entities inside of the client, we have a socket manager, which calls the game client. So let's go to the game client, which I could say game client. We'll go here, and then we will find a method. I think it's like on entities update or something. I forget what the name is, but we keep scrolling down. I'm sure we'll find it on game state update. So basically we have a socket manager, which is abstracting away the logic for how do we connect to the WebSocket server. If you look at that, this will connect the socket, and then it just takes a bunch of callbacks. So like the game client has no idea about WebSockets. All it knows is that like, hey, I got something that needs to run when an event came in called like on game state update. So what this does is every server tick, we get a full list of all the entities, and then we basically put them in an array over here. And that is later going to be processed over. If we were to go to update, you'll see there's an update entities method, which I do think I have over here. We have game client update, and we have game client render. So we're going to focus on the update right now. It basically loops through all those entities, and it tries to figure out, hey, did the entity get removed from the backend? Because some entities clean up over time. For example, when a zombie dies, they have like a certain amount of time and their corpse will disappear. I think there's some other things that auto clean up, like sound effects. Like when you shoot the shotgun, it's going to put a sound entity on the map, and then other players who are nearby can hear it. I added some logic to basically say the further away you are from the sound, like the lower the volume it is. And I think that'll be fun for a multiplayer game, because now you can know if people are near you or far away, and you kind of walk towards the sound. Adding some type of surround sound or like some, you know, left-right audio would be really nice. But that's kind of an enhancement that we're not going to get to just yet. So again, remove all the dead entities, and then we have this section that's going to either add or update existing entities. So if an entity comes in that we haven't seen before, we basically check the ID, and if it's an existing one, we just need to either deserialize the data that came in, or we just object assign. I think this is going to go away at some point. To do this will go away when we refactor all entities to use ECS. This is old, but we're trying to do a slow transition. If you're still watching, listen up. This is good advice. If you are trying to do a refactoring, one thing I would recommend doing is find a way to chunk off a narrow slice and just refactor that one little thing to see if the idea is good. And then you slowly go back and you refactor all the other stuff. So what I mean by that is we started this new ECS approach with a single entity. I think it was like the bandage. Maybe it was a cloth. I think it might have been a cloth. So we started this whole extensions thing with a single entity here, and then we added logic in our code base to support both approaches, the old approach and the new approach. And so this is like the new approach. This is the old approach. And I would recommend doing this because it just makes prototyping so much easier. You don't spend a bunch of time like going through your whole code base and refactoring everything. Just do a small little piece of refactoring, verify it's good, verify it's performant, verify it feels maintainable. And if it is, then you go back and you start transitioning other things to it. This allows you to like not have to worry about refactoring so much code at once. You just can all the new stuff you're adding in can use the new approach if you think it was good. And then all the old stuff, you can just allocate some time to go back and refactor it. So anyway, when a new entity comes in and updates, this is what gets called. And then finally, we basically add it to this entities array on the front end. so that the front end can render them. Okay, so on the front end, there's another collection, right? We have this collection of entities that live on the client. And if you were to look at this method, we have game state, and that has an array of entities. So like the server, the front end is going to loop at a certain refresh interval. I think right now it's set to like the refresh interval of your browser. And it's just going to render all of these entities to the screen. So that takes us to the very last thing I want to talk about, is we have the render method. And so if we look at the game client render, we can go ahead and find it here. So all this does is clear out the canvas, and then it starts looping over all these different like game state managers, and it renders out the objects to the screen. So we start with the map, and then we render out all the entities, and then we do the heads up display. Like we have some stuff on the top right corner of the game that gets rendered out. I don't know where that went. Here it is. So we got like the day, which I think my head is hiding. So if I were to hide that, you'll see the day up there, and then the health and the days left. And then we also render out instructions, which you can toggle away. And then we also render out the bottom bar. Sorry, there's a bug in my code. I need to definitely fix that. But we render out a bottom inventory hotkey bar. And that's all kind of displayed here. Okay, so that's kind of how the entire game engine works right now. There's a lot of stuff that we need to improve, a lot of stuff we need to refactor. At the same time, I want to keep adding functionality. So I don't want to spend, every single hour just refactoring and refactoring and refactoring. Sometimes the only way to know if refactoring is good is to try it out. And so that's what we're doing. Now we're adding in a bunch of entities for different things using the new approach for the extensions. For example, I just added this spikes entity that I talked about. And I'm just kind of playing around with it. Like I had to go and add new extensions, and I had to change the code a little bit to make it update, because before these extensions didn't even have an update method. So there's stuff that you're going to figure out just by slowly and incrementally adding and refactoring changes. And that's how I'd recommend doing it in your code base. Don't do like a big bang refactor. Just do small things one at a time, make sure it works. And then if you're on a team, talk to your team about the change. Do a vote on it. Say, hey, does this change seem like it's a good idea? If it is, maybe we can all spend a couple of days to like refactor the old way so that we can all get on this new way, because I think this new approach is much more maintainable than the old approach. Anyway, so if you guys are interested in contributing to this project, which I hope you guys are, I mean, we're looking for contributors who want to try to build a game together. I think it'd be very fun. Just go to Survive the Night Game on my Git repo. I'll put this in the description of the video. But just keep in mind, we are doing tons of refactoring. You're probably going to get conflicts. So if you're not really strong at resolving conflicts, maybe wait until this game is more solid. But if you still want to try to contribute, you can go in and check out this repo, and then also be sure to join our Discord. I have a channel on the side where we are just talking about this game specifically. So I would recommend going on the Discord if you want to work on this, because if you just make PRs without collaborating with us, it's just not going to turn out very well. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. You learned something, hopefully. Leave a comment if there's something new I talked about that you did learn. And yeah, other than that, have a good day. Happy coding.